Hello, this is Anna Imagination with the Healing Garden. Thank you so much for joining me. This is the Narcissist Pandemic. I want you to just take in this space. This is my space. The Narcissist Pandemic is my playlist, and it might be updated to a podcast later. I have not yet decided. It is basically a narcissist-focused playlist where we sit down and we just analyze what narcissism is in my perspective, through my perspective psychology, and how to navigate it. It's all the ins and the outs of narcissism. Now, I have a very, very unusual theory on narcissism that is not common knowledge. In fact, everything I do is just not common knowledge. That's a nice blanket statement I just need to put out there. This is not common knowledge. I don't follow common knowledge. So, narcissism, I released two videos the other day where I really broke down how codependency, borderline personality disorder, and the narcissist are all this three muddled parasitic host existence. And it is. That is it. That is my not known to, not common knowledge, and that is the basis of it, is that you have the borderline personality, you have the narcissist, and then you have this codependent relationship between the two of them. I am a firm believer that borderline personality disorder is a direct result of narcissistic abuse. I believe that narcissistic abuse syndrome is borderline personality disorder. That all being said, I have yet to meet anyone who had borderline personality disorder who was not subjected to significant narcissistic abuse, which is why I believe that borderline personality disorder is the mental illness that develops from narcissistic abuse syndrome. It is the condition of a human being being accused and gaslighted of being nothing, and they are yo-yoed because you are at the beck and call only at the narcissist's whim. So if the narcissist can't use you, you're ignored. And if you annoy the narcissist, it's your fault. And if the narcissist wants you, you had better jump. And this yo-yoing, he wants me, he doesn't want me, it's my fault, I messed up, I'm worthless, I'm a disease, I'm going to hurt you, please love me. That's borderline personality disorder. And that is full grooming from severe narcissistic abuse syndrome, which is why I believe that borderline personality disorder is a direct consequence of narcissism. So the borderline patient, I'm going to not use these terms because I don't like them. I'm going to call this person the empath, and I'm going to call this person the narcissist. So the narcissist and the empath have a very unusual relationship. Actually, it's a very common relationship. That's why it's a pandemic. And this is basically codependency. Now, I love talking about codependency. However, my problem with codependency is in traditional therapy, psychologists like to use the concept of codependency exclusively for alcoholism, which is bullshit. Codependence exists between anybody who has a symbiotic relationship. Where this symbiotic relationship develops is basically this relationship with how we define love. Love in a codependent relationship is defined off of two things. I need you, and I need to be needed. Now, to the empath, the I need to be needed is how they define love. If no one needs them, they're not loved. And with the narcissist, it's I need you. And that is how the narcissist defines love. The word need in every case means being used. So for the narcissist, they're actually defining love as I need to use you. And for the empath, they define love as I need someone to use me. Now, this is colorfully traded out for other words like I need to serve, I need to take care of somebody, I need to be needed. So what you have is the empath who is almost completely void of self-value. When they are completely void of self-value, you end up, it's a spectrum. You have humility over here. Humility here, being humble is here. You have humility over here, and you have self-value over here. So these are the two polar opposites. These are the emotions that work off of against each other. They are this beautiful symbiotic move back and forth. In an individual, you want them both. And you want them both in the neutral zone, and you want them both basically pulling off of each other. You want to be humbled, and you want self-value. That way you don't get an inflated ego, and that way you don't get treated like a maggot. So what happens in the case of an empath is they are completely void of self-value, and as a result, their humility drifts further and further away from that neutral zone. Likewise, the narcissist is completely void of humility, and as a result, they are void and they drift further and further into the realm of self-importance and self-value. When this happens, you have three types of people. You have the narcissist without any self-value, with full self-value and an inflated ego. I don't like that word because now I know what ego means. You have an inflated sense of self-value and self-worth. I'm thinking. I'll have to come back to that, but I'm pretty sure that self-value is not ego. So you have somebody who has a full, maxed out, unchecked level of self-importance, self-value, while the empath has this massive amount of humility and feeling like they aren't worthy, so they serve. And then in the middle, in this sweet spot, you have people who are balanced with the right amount of self-value and the right amount of being humbled. Not humiliated, humbled. And when you get this, you get these neutral people. This is where you want to live. You want to be here. Because when you are here, your humility will pull on your humbleness, will pull on your self-value. And your self-value will pull on your humbleness to keep you from drifting one way or the other. So it'll balance it out and it will become a neutral state of existence. But if you have too much of this, then you're going to have too much of this negative, and too much of this will give you too much of this negative. That positive is going to be right here in the center. So that being said, these people love to eat and prey on these people. And these people love to serve these people. So these people are sitting here bowing while these people are sitting here dictating. It's a beautiful BDSM, dominatrix, and submissive relationship, and they love it. This is codependency. Likewise, these people also enable each other. As a result, this person gets a greater and higher inflated ego, while this person gets a lower worthlessness, negative feeling. Now, a proper dom will know this, and a proper dom will actually nourish this person and raise them up, and they will actually become valued. This is when BDSM is done right. This is what I used to do with my subs. I love doing this. It's when you build up the importance of the sub so that you actually take a sub, somebody who's submissive, who serves, and you teach them self-value. So I learned something this morning, that if you play with somebody, it actually only takes 10 to 20 repetitions to remember something. But if you don't play with someone while they are trying to learn something, you have to memorize it 400 times. Neuroscience is amazing. So make sure you play when you learn. That way, you only get to repeat it maybe 20 times. So when you are practicing BDSM properly, you have this person over here who is supposed to be elevator? Yeah, be an elevator person. You want to be an elevator person to this person and lift them up. And then that will bring everybody out into this gorgeous balance. But that's not what happens. What happens is instead codependency, where this person eats and feeds off of this person, and this person is thrilled and happy to be serving and literally surrendering completely to this person, and it enables each other, and it's toxic. The people who are here are looking at this whole thing going, wow, there's like a lot of codependency around here. So that is basically narcissism, the narcissistic paradigm. This is what I call the slave master paradigm, because one assumes the role of a slave mind and the other assumes the role as a master. And what ends up happening is that mastermind seeks needing to be loved, or needing to be needing to be loved. I need you to love me. I need you. You need me. You need me. Well, that's the attitude as the narcissist says that they need you. And when you have a narcissist who's in the dating pool, that's one of the things that they come out way too early. Is anytime you hear the word need in the dating pool, that's a red flag. The word need is a toxic word. It is not a good word. Under no circumstance should you ever need anyone, unless you are an infant. But that's the problem. That opens up the other element that I'm going to talk about here in a minute. Unless you are an infant who literally needs a caregiver or you'll die, under no circumstance should you ever, and that's it. Need means if you don't get this, you'll die. So let's examine that. Need means if you don't get this, you'll die. But when you have a stranger who's only known you one day 2 years ago and he says to you, I need you. Really? You're going to die without me? No, that's not what he means at all. He means I need to use you. But he's using the word need in place of that. When you have somebody who is, when you have somebody who is diagnosed with borderline personality, diagnosed, fuck that crap. When you have somebody who has borderline personality disorder and they have this severe need to be loved or need to be needed, what that really is creating in their minds is, I need someone to use me. It's not actually the word dying. It's not actually, if you need this, you'll die without it. I need food. I need water. I need sleep. See the difference? So when you don't get what you need, you die. So there is no, you don't need people and you'll die if you don't get them. That doesn't, no. And there's going to be those few people who bring up how social we are. And no, we're not. No, we are not. You can die from grief. You can die from heartbreak. And that is so abnormal. And it is an extreme codependency case. And that is not healthy. That is an extreme mentally ill situation that those people die when somebody they love dies. If you die from heartbreak or a lack of socialization, it's because you are somewhere else on the spectrum of the social needs. And that's a thing where some people are very high social needs and other people are very low social needs. But if you are mentally imbalanced, you are naturally going to be higher on the social needs because you seek to supplement and project your own needs onto other people instead of looking inward and taking care of them for yourself. So, yes, it's a very common thing to think that when you are requiring higher social needs, you're going to need somebody. You should not need anybody. You need yourself. And it's almost always a complete lack of identity that when you lose somebody, you immediately take your identity with you because your identity was commingled with that person, hence codependency. Codependency is when your identity is actually defined and intertwined in someone else to the point where you become a single entity. That's not healthy. So, how and where this all came up is basically our mothers. We are in a society where mothers are groomed at infancy that without a child, they have no identity. They are nothing and nobody without their identity. So from as early as 2 years old in infancy, a woman, a female person is handed dolls. And what that programs that child to do is associate joy, it's very much a conditioning process where you associate dolls with, oh, I'm happy. And I now have this association of childhood bliss while I cradle this doll. And then there's comments being made, subliminal messaging that we pass down from generation to generation of parents going, oh, you're going to make a good mother someday. Well, now you've got parental, validation that is also being mixed with childhood euphoria and nostalgia while you stare at an infant. So naturally, by the time the child is 5, 10 years old, the female child is then told things like, oh, you're so pretty, you're going to make someone a good husband one day. That's all conditioning. So now the child is again going, oh, look, mommy and daddy approve of me. I have parental validation because I'm pretty. I have parental validation because I have a doll. And I have such fond memories of parental validation that I'm going to look back at this moment and desire a doll when I get to be older of my own. And that becomes the obsessive goal of most women in our culture, so that the only thing that defines them is when I am married with children. So then you reach 20, 25 years old, and these children go out and they get pregnant. They go out and they have children with people they really don't care about because they're projecting their own needs onto somebody else and they're codependent. They then turn around and they have children of their own, which they then use to supplement their own identity. I need my child. My child defines me. I give everything to my child. I allow my child to be a parasite as it drains me completely of all identity and existence. If my child dies, I am nothing. I was nothing before my child existed. I had 20 years of preparing for this moment when my child would come into existence. I will live and die for my child. And what ends up happening is you have the oldest child who is then completely consumed and loved, quote unquote, over the concept of my mother needs me. That's right, mom, you need me. And in most cases, that child is going to be raised up to be a narcissist because it was taught very, very thoroughly that mommy needs you. Likewise, the second, third, fourth, fifth child, however many more children the mother has, are being ignored because the mother serves the oldest child, which is why the oldest child is almost always a narcissist. The second, third, fourth, fifth children are usually all empaths who now have to squabble, starve, fight for any acknowledgement from the mother. We call that emotional breadcrumbs. And when you get emotional breadcrumbs from the mother, it's immediately I need my mother to need me because she needs my brother, and now I need her to need me so she will love me. I need you to need me. And the brother's over there going, yes, mother, I need you. I'm the important one. So the mother completely caters to the first child's wishes, giving them everything they need because they have a master. They must serve. In the meantime, you've got children 2 through X all trying to convey and fight for the attention of the mother that's not available to them. So they grow up now desiring and seeking a master of their own. So now you have 2, 3, 4 children from one household seeking out narcissists, all ready to serve because their mother taught them that she doesn't need to be they don't need to be her master, but they're going to only get her attention if they serve her. So when the narcissist child leaves, the mother then turns to the other children, finally, and it immediately becomes my mother is looking at me, she's seeing me, oh, I need to serve her, I'm going to get her something. And the mother only acknowledges the other children when she needs them. So now the children have an association in their heads that they are loved only when the mother needs them. So now those children grow up seeking out love through the definition of somebody who needs me. And that is how an empath is born. That is how a narcissist is born. And the cycle will repeat itself. The narcissist is going to marry an empath because they need to replicate that cycle, and the cycle will repeat. Sometimes it's the woman who is the narcissist and she seeks out an empath. It doesn't really matter the gender. The point is, in almost every case, we have one or the other, where one is the narcissist and the other is the empath, and they're breeding, and they are teaching the same method, the same definition of love. Now, this definition of love, going back to need, comes back to one concept and one principle, that the definition of need is to use, which is why we have a society filled with people who use people. That is the narcissist pandemic. You just have people using people over and over again. And this was taught because their parents did it, and their parents before them did it, and their parents before them did it. It's what happens when you have an identity that is not defined. You immediately try to supplement your stolen and lost identity. When you have somebody who is born and they have their identity in place and they have their authority in place, the narcissist will step in and they will take away the authority and hoard it for themselves, because that is what narcissists do. They want to make sure that they hold the authority because they associate authority and control with being able to feel safe. So they take the child's authority and they hoard it for ransom as a method to control so they feel safe. So almost every child is now born with their authority being taken away from them. Likewise, we were all taught that identity is not safe. We all have that program. So parents are teaching their children, identity is dangerous, keep it away. So what you end up having is every time a child reaches 2, 3, 4 years old, at a time when authority should be given to the child so they can learn about authority, instead, the narcissistic parent hoards the authority, and the parents abuse the child with perspective abuse, cultivating them into this fit inside this perspective, and this is the perspective you really need to be in because it's not safe to be in any other perspective. So then the child, the narcissist child or the empath child, learns that it isn't safe to be outside any other perspective except the one their parents dictate. But they also lack identity because identity threatens the safety. So you have to destroy identity, and identity has to go completely away in order for them to step in and groom you into whatever they need. So that grooming is already taking place, nurturing and cultivating the empath child or the narcissist child. In the meantime, there is no authority. The authority has been hoarded by the narcissist parent. So these children are now raising, and they're growing up without identity. They're starved for identity. And as a supplement, the women, the female children, are given dolls to grow them, to cultivate them, to condition them into thinking you don't have an identity, but you will when you have a child of your own. And the cycle continues, and the cycle continues, and the cycle continues. And that's where the narcissist pandemic is now completely flooded throughout the entire world. That's why almost everybody knows a narcissist, because it's getting to a point where our society is being broken down into either the narcissist or the empath. And it's extraordinary to watch, like as far as psychology goes, it's extraordinary to see how this whole thing just kind of spills out. And it's all because we have our identities taken away and supplanted with other uses. So the mother seeks out her identity defined by I need to need my children, or I need to serve my children, or my children must need me, depending upon whether or not she's an empath or a narcissist. And it just teaches everybody to just keep using other people. So the solution, how to break it, awareness. Awareness is always the first key. Once you become aware of it, you can start looking for signs, and you can start using cognitive behavioral therapy or meditation to basically pause, stop, and stop. Hey, I can recognize that now. I see it now. You don't need somebody. I need to instead define myself. And that's really where it starts, is you need to stop and you need to define yourself. The more you cultivate and define your identity and your ego, the better all of this falls into place. The more you focus on your identity, your ego, your intuition, and you nurture that, the more it's impossible for narcissism to impede. And that's just it. Narcissism is a total lack. This is hilarious. Narcissism is a total absence of identity. And if you actually look at the definition of narcissist, the actual Greek story, it actually means the exact opposite. It's a misnomer. Narcissist means you're full of identity. But actually having narcissistic personality disorder means you are fully absent of identity. You define identity by who you can use and who serves you. Whereas the empath defines identity, this is beautiful, I love this shit. The empath defines identity by who needs them. And that's how they define themselves. So once you realize how you define your identity, are you being defined by who you need, or are you being defined by who needs you? Well, there you go. Now you can separate yourself from, no, I don't need that. What I need is myself. And this is where you need to look into self-care cocoons, self-care regimens. Make sure that you are cultivating your own defined sense of self, separate from needing or using other people. Under no circumstances should you ever need anybody else. You need to establish the identity, the ego, the intuition. Get real acquainted with that shadow self. While we're all doing this, you've got the patriarchy system, that stage 4 perspective, saying that the most important thing in life is law and order and justice. And they are at work destroying the identity because they value, according to that 4th perspective, they value and prioritize law, order, and justice above the autonomy, the identity. So they are on this massive mission to literally destroy our identity. And as they work to destroy the identity, it absolutely cultivates the exact situation we need to have more mothers churning out narcissists and empaths, which just keeps repeating the cycle. So nurture your identity. Absolutely do work to nurture your identity. The best way to nurture your identity is your voice. Your throat chakra is absolutely channeled 100% to your identity. The more you talk, the more you vocalize, the more you assert yourself without aggression, the more you define who you are. Get into public speaking, journal. It's why therapists has everyone journaling. It's because the more you write, the more you define the self, the more you channel who you are, and you can bring and nourish it out. It's amazing how closely connected identity is to your voice and your communication systems. Our entire defense system is built off of, well, our emotions and also our ability to communicate. So the more you communicate, the more you use your emotions, the more you nurture your identity. Fun fact, narcissists hate boundaries. Boundaries are you communicating whether or not you're okay with something or you're not okay with something. When you communicate your boundary, the narcissist doesn't like that because that's your identity. So they immediately go after your identity and attack it by taking away your ability to set a boundary. They don't like boundaries because you are literally handing them your identity, and that is something they don't want because they're anti-identity. So communication, absolutely journal, absolutely focus in on what you love, what you want, what you dream, what you imagine, what you desire. These are all the things that nurture your identity back. The more you do this, and not people, do not talk about how much you love people. People are in a danger zone of being projections of your fear, being projection of being used or needing to be used. So stay away from desiring people, stay away from needing people, because that's a slippery slope into fear, and it actually takes you away from love. Instead, focus on what you love that's neutral, things that don't love you back. Love things that can't love you back. Love things that cannot love you back, like the stars, like trees, like your cat. Not your dog. Dogs don't count. Dogs love you back. You can't count a dog. But cats, yeah, love your cat. Love a table or a blanket or a pillow. Love something that you cannot get love back from. And once you start to really wrap your head around the concept that that is love, you start to see it more and more when you look at being in fear love as opposed to being in love. So thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. If you want more shit like this, subscribe to my YouTube channel. And if you want even more shit like this, subscribe to my newsletter. And if you can't get enough of shit like this, go ahead and take a look at my master classes. And that is available down below. There's several links. You can go to annashealinggarden.org. And I have several live workshops where I do my BDSM workshop. I have a lot. Just take a look at Anna's list. You can subscribe there if you're interested to learn anything more about my Anna's Elite list coming up, and also any of my live workshops, as well as my masterclasses. So thank you so much, and may the kindest of words always find you.